Nobody prays for disaster, but the reality of life is that it does happen. Many organizations and businesses have suffered untold hardships and unquantifiable losses due to preventable disasters. Today on the show, I'll be speaking with a disaster management expert, Mr. Amsat Kolawole. Welcome. It's a well-known fact that many businesses have suffered untold hardship as a result of preventable disasters. Can you please tell us disasters that are most frequently occurring in businesses today?
Business owners have experienced terrible losses from preventable disasters. First and foremost, let me tell you what a disaster is.
Yes.
A disaster is the disruption of the normal functioning of a society, leading to loss of lives, properties, environment, ecosystem, and the rest, overwhelming the coping capacity of the people living in the community. And as we know, businesses are part of a community.
True.
So whenever a disaster occurs in any community, businesses are bound to suffer.
True.
And once this happened, many of them that don't have good insurance policies do either go out of the business or find it difficult to come back. So whenever a disaster,
or even leads to disability.
we have experienced things like that, especially when we have a market fire that occurred where we have all these micro enterprises, entrepreneurs, so to say,
Yeah.
whose capitals.
In your experience, in contemporary times, especially in urban centers, what are the types of disasters? Just highlight for us the type of disasters that businesses are most frequently exposed to.
Strictly, fire disaster is the common one. Major markets in urban centers, especially in this part of the world where we don't take preventive measures serious, have suffered seriously from fire disaster. We have many markets in Lagos, Ibadan, Abuja that have suffered seriously from these preventable disasters. And when they occur, the entrepreneurs, I mean the business owners, they always record losses.
Besides fire, what other kinds of accidents?
Of course, flooding, even when that is not too common. I could recall an experience, August 26, 2011. It was a dark Friday in Ibadan. And businesses like Zatek would always tell you it was a terrible day for them, because the following day, after our assessments, engagement with the management, they told us they have lost multiple of millions. Besides
those two, what are the other ones that businesses need to take cognizance of in today's society?
Rainstorm also. Rainstorm, we have said, flooding, fire, even those that affect their staff in the use of machines and equipment. When you have expended so much on the staff, build the staff capacity, and in a short while, one of your machines cause injury and make such a person disabled. One, the person will not be functional in that office. You have to hire and train again. And where do you record such loss? So, issues of work safety, which many of our entrepreneurs have not really put in shape, have made them to lose money that could have been prevented.
Specifically, when we're talking about fire, what are the preventive measures that we need to put in place besides fire extinguisher, installing fire extinguishers? What are the other forms of preventive measures that one needs to take as a business owner?
The first thing every entrepreneur or business needs to do is to create awareness That is a serious capacity every staff.
Do they need an expert to help them do that?
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. Many of the businesses always think when you hire a fire safety man, you are doing it. You are not. The scope of what such a man, especially if he's not going to training and retraining regularly. Of course, things that people were using in the past to mitigate the impact of fire, there are new things, there are modern things that businesses need to start doing if they want to prevent a fire. So if businesses are not in
if
team,
I am a business owner, and I want us to be specific here now.
yeah.
If I invite you to my premises to help me with preventive measures, what are the kind of things you will be telling me and my employees?
The first thing is we build the capacity of your staff. It's not only technical staff, all the staffers, including the management. The next thing is we teach them how to use certain equipment like the extinguisher you have mentioned, like the water hose and the rest. The next thing is we tell you how you can evacuate your staff when there are fire disasters.
Like fire exits.
Fire exits, most businesses don't take this seriously, and the assembly point. So when we do all this, of course, that will go a long way to reduce the risk of fire in the organization.
And you probably will recommend installation of alarms,
there are fire
smoke
alarms,
detectors,
smoke like that,
and stuff like that.
smoke alarms and the rest.
I still want you to touch further on this building capacity thing.
Yeah.
You will help the employer to build capacity in his employees. Specifically, what are you referring to?
Yes, it is just let the awareness be there that wherever you use power, you are susceptible to fire disaster. So once that is registered in mind, then we teach them how to cope with the use of power, because power is friendly. We use it to do many things, productive activities in the industry. But when mismanaged, it becomes our enemy. So that we registered first.
Specifically mismanaged in what sense?
Of course, there are many ways power can be mismanaged. Yeah. If you are running shift, the supervisor that is handing over to the next supervisor must detail and document all that they have recorded that has happened during their own shift to the next supervisor that is taking over. So if that is not done, probably there has been a melting point which the supervisor that is taking up is not aware of. That may be a problem. So this we need to tell them seriously, make them to put it in their schedule. But once they do that, of course, they reduce the risk. Once that is not done, the industry, the business is more vulnerable to fire disaster.
Now, are you also looking at terminals and sockets?
Yeah, those things are basic, because in the capacity building I mentioned earlier on, those are places we take them to. The voltage that is the capacity of each, we must know. Of course, not every supervisor may know this, because most businesses don't engage in what we call orientation, and even those that do that, they don't usually include such. So if some of us are hired as a consultant, then we take them through all this step by step, stage by stage.
Coming up,
employees don't always query, question, ask for those things that are their rights Because why? You know what it takes to get a good job. So once you get that, even when the employer is using every means to handicap you, to keep you unsafe where you work, many of them still keep means.
Now, in your experience, over the last 5-7 years, how would you describe the awareness level and the inclination of disposition of Nigerians towards preventive measure strategies in the workplace?
Yeah, that is still very low. Very low.
Has there been an improvement?
Not really. Not really, because if there has been an improvement, there was a time, I think 2-3 years ago, Oyo State recorded quite a large number of market fire disasters. So in the last 5 years, the improvement is not that significant. So the awareness is still low.
Well, you've been to some other societies outside Nigeria.
Yeah.
What is it that they're doing in those societies that's inculcating the disposition that we see citizens in those countries display towards preventive measures? What is it that they are doing that we are not doing in our own environment here?
Yeah, there are many. In some countries, you see what we now call disaster risk reduction measures introduced to school curricula at all levels. So if you have undergone that, whenever you find yourself, it is registered that when you see power, you know how to cope with it. When there is heavy downpour, you know it might likely lead to flooding. When the storm is tough, you know what to do.
So there's a lot the schools can do right now.
There are lots. So we can start from that. Aside that, our public education is still very low. Engage a university students in the issues of disasters. You will be amused what he will be telling you. Many of them are not aware. We still believe it's an act of God. It's high time we moved away from such notion and see disasters as the reality of the modern day, the reality of life, and we start working towards reducing the risk.
Now, I reckon that you belong to some organization or association of practitioners who are into disaster management, prevention, and what have you. Has there been any form of engagement between your association and different entrepreneurial bodies? I mean, the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria, the Chambers of Commerce, and some other commercial associations?
Yes, we have tried severally to engage them, but the response has not been encouraging, because like we said when we started this program, that as an entrepreneur, profit is their problem. They always want to make profit. Not many of them will think of let us prevent hazards that are preventable, not to lead to disasters. Disasters that might take away all their investments. They won't do that. It is until when it happened, when they suffered the losses, that is when they now start looking for what can we do to prevent this, what can we do to prevent that. When you, like one of our network I belong to, we have a project we call Reach Out to the Vulnerables. Okay. We are moving to public institutions, just 1-2 day capacity building on disaster risk reduction. So when we are done with many of the institutions that we think are relevant, we are thinking of engaging businesses. But once they know they will cover out money, then the story would change. So it's high time they start thinking preventive. It's high time they start thinking DRR. because disaster risk reduction is the new paradigm to disaster management globally. And what that entails is put up measures that will help you to reduce the risk. Conduct assessments that will tell you what conditions you are vulnerable to. Then build capacity, serious capacity building, because it is when you have capacity that your organization can be resilient to some hazards that may trigger serious disasters. But if we don't engage in these skills and capacity acquisition that will help you to reduce risk, then the business is in trouble. This business will continually be endangered.
If you're invited to an organization to conduct an exposure assessment, risk exposure assessment, what are the kind of things you'll be looking at in terms of checklist? What are the things that you will venture to find out?
When we are conducting a risk assessment, we have different tools in doing that: the seasonal calendar, the transit work, the historical data, and things like that. So it depends on the tool you want to use. So if an organization invites us to come and conduct a risk assessment, I will prefer to use a transit work.
How does that work?
Yeah, that's you engage a key informant in that organization that will take you around. As an expert, I know hazards that I am looking for. I know the set of conditions that I will be looking out for in the organization that may make the organization vulnerable to those hazards. And after that, I will engage the staff to know the level of their capacity to cope with those hazards in the organization and the conditions that may make the hazards trigger disasters. So it's a sequential process, and of course, if you have a business and you are using power, the first thing is, let us go to your source of power. Is it NEPA? Is it generating sets? The kind of generating set you are using, how you bring power into the organization, the supply routes, those are the things we will check. And the standards, those ones matter too. So those are the things we put in record, and after the assessments we come up with our recommendations, and we move on.
And you get paid?
Of course, yes, we must be paid.
Exactly. Now let's move to look at capacity building, because you've talked lengthily about it, but you've not really touched on the specifics of building capacity. Besides holding training sessions, what other forms of capacity are we looking at here in terms of building capacities?
Drills. How many businesses are conducting fire drills? Very few. Okay. You can, let me give an example.
Please.
I went to Japan recently to attend the World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. Okay. So the hotel I was, I think fortnightly, every second Wednesday, there is this fire drill. As guests, I didn't know such occur. And look at poor me, a Nigerian. The information,
an expert for that matter.
Imagine, the information is there on my table, but I did not go through all the papers. So I was just relaxing on my bed. I had the fire alarm, pom pom like that, and I quickly realized what it was, and I started my laptop, things that could take me back many years. My laptop, my iPad. Of course, I have not studied the meeting points, so I was just running here and there like that, only to realize it was just a drill. So it was just a simulation.
I've also had that experience in an
So
hotel abroad.
how many of our businesses are doing that? And that is just a measure to reduce fire risk, because if it was a fire, seriously, people that we could have been evacuated and nothing will happen to any of us, our properties that we can take along would be saved, and those we cannot take along will be there. But
And knowing where to meet.
the meeting point, very important.
And also knowing the various fire exits.
Exit points. So those things we don't have the culture here, and that is why we are telling businesses to engage in the culture of a disaster risk reduction, because their investment is at a great risk if these measures are not inculcated in their policies. Many of our businesses look at their policies, you don't really see serious issues of security there, and that is why you see many of the businesses being looted, robbed by robbers within and without. You don't really see information about fire evacuation, fire drills, exit points, and so on and so forth. So when these things are not there, then the business is, or the businesses are at greater risk.
So besides drilling, besides the drill, besides knowing exit points, meeting points, and what have you, what other kinds of capacity do you build in the employees of an organization when you go to give them those tips?
Well, that is, when you talk of fire, those are the basic things
what about workplace injury?
Yeah, that's another thing, and that is part of what we call everyday disasters, not the common natural disasters we know, flooding, rainstorm,
things that can make an employee disabled for life.
Yes,
some of these things
they are there. They occur in the business, especially those that work in industries and factories.
Yeah.
An entrepreneur who has invested in an employee should know that workplace at all time must be kept safe. There should be workplace policies that guides actions of every employee. There should be notices posted all around to tell you if a location is slippery, the information should be there to inform you. There should be information about new equipment. During the period of working, such a man is turned handicapped. You know, of course, yes, you have compensation to pay. And aside that, hiring a new employee, it's a serious thing. For instance, those that work in construction jobs, the use of safety helmets, safety boots, goggles, and equipment like that, and gloves, to mention a few, are very, very important. And that is why there should be workplace policy that will compel every employee to make use of those equipment. And those that decide not should be punished, because they can affect the functional system of the organization if anything happens to them.
Now, let's look at regulation here. All of these things that you have painted, they seem to me like a no-brainer. I mean, anyone who has invested so much money should naturally be interested in protecting that investment. But you have told us here now today that entrepreneurs and business owners are not doing all these things. And they're enabling laws which compels employers of labor, for instance, or business owners to put some of these measures that you've talked about in place.
There are. The International Labour Organization has a lot of those regulations at international level.
Okay. Have they been domesticated now? Laws,
yeah, even
laws?
at the local level, at the national level, we have many of those laws.
Yeah.
We have a lot of environmental laws that protect the environment where every employee works.
Yes.
We have those that are specifically for specific industries, but it is because of the nature of our entrepreneurs in this part of the world. We don't take such regulations seriously, and because of our society too, employees don't always query, question, ask for those things that they are their rights, because why? You know what it takes to get a good job. So once you get that, even when the employer is using every means to handicap you, to keep you unsafe where you work, many of them still keep mute.
Coming up.
In Nigeria, we have still not seen disasters as a reality of our time. We still believe it's an act of God. Many of the disasters that have wreaked havoc to businesses, to industries are preventable, only if we take preventable measures.
If a disaster occurs wherein an employee becomes disabled, whether temporarily or permanently, in some other climes, we know that such an employee has an opportunity of redress from the courts, wherein compensations can be paid.
Yeah.
You know, if you prosecute. Do we have such situation presently in this country?
Of course, the regulations are there.
Are the enabling laws, national laws, are they there
Yeah,
that an employee can utilize?
Just I cannot remember specifically now
Sections.
the sections, but I know they are there, and you could see that where issues like that have happened, the trade unions have assisted many of the employees to take up such cases. The enabling laws are there. They are domesticated. They are only not functional because probably after a compensation of some amount, the employee who has been incapacitated will just, you know, Nigerians, the way we behave, after pleading, compelling, and a token as compensation, just take to, well, that's my fate. But the courts are there to address and redress all this. But how many of the affected employees have taken up issues like that to court?
Now, before you go, let us touch on the entrepreneurial opportunities in disaster management, because I mean this is a program for entrepreneurs and business owners. I'm sure as they're listening to you, the first thing that's coming to their heads are, what are the things that can fetch me more money as a business? Please highlight, tell us if you can.
Most of what we have been using in response activities in Nigeria are imported. So what our entrepreneurs are doing, they should go there, bring them to this country and start selling. For instance, there is what we call search tab. Search tab is a mechanism that you can use when there is a collapsed building to check if people are trapped in the building. The search tab can censor blood, can censor breath. Once you insert it, if there is still blood, you see it on the screen. If the person there is still breathing, you feel it, then you know you have to engage more in your activity to bring such a person out. Okay. There are many.
Please tell us some of the other ones that are available.
Of course,
just to trick our imagination.
Yeah, when you talk of fire, there are lots you can bring. Of course, everybody.
Affordable technology.
Everybody is used to what we call extinguishers.
Yes.
But how many of us have such in our homes?
Smoke detectors.
Smoke detectors, fire alarms. How many of us have such in our homes? Those basic ones we can even afford in our kitchen. How many of us have those ones at home? Common first aid boxes, the equipment, your emergency kit. The emergency kit should comprise of your basic food, your torch, your small radio, what you can use to navigate when it's flooding, the sack that you can use to cover your nose when you want to evacuate from a fire disaster. Probably it's highly smoky. Helmets. There are many safety equipment which are not readily available, which entrepreneurs can bring into this country. And I can still tell you that because those things are not readily available, that is why many people are not even aware of the needs. Because
now you can talk about all these items because you're an expert in the field.
Yeah.
If, let's just assume there's someone watching us at home at the moment and their interest is already piqued and they want to venture, as it were.
Recently I went for a conference outside this country, and I was exposed to many gadgets that are useful here at home. A typical example is a power vehicle. This is a vehicle that you can charge, and after you have charged the vehicle will supply power for as long as 10 to 24 hours, and this can be used in disaster situations. Such a vehicle will supply power to communities, to households when there are disasters, and those people that are affected by disasters could start earning. They will start cooking, heating, and they enjoy power from such a vehicle. Nowhere in West Africa I have had such happen, but we can bring that to Nigeria, and it is not that expensive. It's affordable.
So communities can purchase it.
Local governments can purchase.
Does it have the capacity of a transformer?
Once it can serve for that long period, at least for a day, so you can power affected community for, let's say, 4 hours per day, and that is a range of
where can a startup obtain all this information? I mean, you went for a conference. If I want to access this information in terms of what are the technologies, what are the gadgets that are available that I can import and come and sell in our climb here, where can I obtain those kind of information?
Of course,
without going for exhibitions?
No, we are in the world is at every body's fingertip now. The internet is there. A typical site that can serve that purpose is Prevention Web.
Prevention Web.
Yeah, www.preventionweb.net. Okay. When you get to the web, issues of disaster management, safety equipment, you get many of them are there. So sites like that provide information.
Is that the only one?
No, there are many of them. Any site is there. Even UNISDR, that is United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction.org. Okay. There are many sites like that. IRENE is there. They provide information for response equipment that entrepreneurs that are interested in this part of the world can search for and start bringing in. And they are useful here. The only thing we need to do is to increase the tempo of our awareness. We need to do that. Public education, it's still very low in Nigeria, because in Nigeria we have still not seen disasters as a reality of our time. We still believe it's an act of God. Many of the disasters that have wreaked havoc to businesses, to industries are preventable, only if we take preventable measures.
you have talked about the poor disposition of Nigerians, Africans in general, towards preventive measures where disaster management is concerned. Perhaps there is a sense in which one could say that entrepreneurs themselves could go out there and become evangelists to entrepreneurs, to other entrepreneurs and businessmen in terms of preventive measures by taking this technology to their doorsteps. We didn't know that we needed iPad until Steve Jobs produced one and marketed it to us. You know, isn't there a sense in which one could say that entrepreneurs can proactively, we all have established that businesses are constantly under threat of disasters. Is there a sense in which one could say that entrepreneurs should go out there and find out what equipments are available, what technologies are available, what facilities are available that they could import into the country and market to entrepreneurs?
Perfect. There is a good sense in that for any of our entrepreneurs that piques interest in that. Because here we have identified that our entrepreneurs have shown the lackadaisical attitudes towards us such. So if as an entrepreneur I am interested in such venture, I can start searching for information, and when I get it good, then I get on by bringing those things we have itemized here and others we have not to the doorsteps of others. But it will be good before we do that we engage in a serious market feasibility.
Is there a sense in which one could say that experts like you could put together a conference, I mean like the TEDx and what have you of this world, right here in this country, and bring the manufacturers together, create a platform where manufacturers and potential entrepreneurs can come together to partners?
That's a good one. That's a good one, because even where we have seen all this outside this country, they are either conferences, fora, or exhibitions. So we can package such in Nigeria, bring the manufacturers and bring the users that can market them. So there is a good sense in that.
If you would do that, or if you would advise or counsel someone who wants to do that, what would you be telling them? If I approach
you to me
as a disaster management expert and I tell you that I have a desire to put together a forum whereby I can bring foreign manufacturers of these technologies and equipments and invite potential markets, potential entrepreneurs and businessmen who will market the equipment, what kind of advice would you be giving me in terms of how I should go about it?
Yeah, the first advice is, one, make sure you have your capital ready, because many of these equipments are capital intensive. It's not that they are that expensive, but they are capital intensive. The second step is we should sit down and look at the nature of the risk hazards in the country and the likely equipment the business owners would be interested in. The next step is we go searching, because of we know what we need. Then we go searching, and when we have compiled our searches and we think we are good to go, then we make contacts. Then and like some of us that have traveled far and wide on this business, we know places to touch. We know countries where their equipment are of standards. We know companies, because they do come to conferences and exhibitions. We have many of their cards and contacts already. So that will not pose a serious threat to our venture. So once we get the contacts, then we start enlisting entrepreneurs here at home that we think would be interested. Then we bring them together we have achieved a serious feat if we can do that, because that will go a long way to help entrepreneurs in Nigeria, that will go a long way to help businesses in Nigeria, that will go a long to help Nigerians, because when an industry is affected, many people will be laid off. You know the multiplier effects on households and things like that.
And permit me to also add, that will go a long way to help disaster management experts like you.
Of course,
Mr.
yes.
Musat, thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
Yeah, thank you,
It's been wonderful having you on the show.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.